Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brian Choper, and welcome to our 8th episode of TBM Radio Show, the Business of Music Radio Show. You already know about me and Lou.
How you doing out there? It's Lou Durham.
And our guest tonight is Ralph Magwood. Ralph, please say hello.
Oh, hello to everyone. It's a pleasure to be on the show tonight.
See, that's Ralph, the soft-spoken musician, entrepreneur, who you don't know everything about him. You don't know things until you start working with him, and then piece by piece, all these things come out that he does, and then you listen and pay more attention to them as you get into them one by one, and you find, hey, wow, this guy's got some talent. And it started out with me meeting him through Susie's cause, because Nexus and Nexus has a nickname, by the way. People know our band Nexus. It has a nickname, Thunder and Lightning, from the song. And we're playing on April 28th, and we invite everyone to go to our website on Big Shot Records and learn about that. But he's involved in Susie's cause, and he's also involved now in Nexus, the rock band that we've got, and he also has his own projects. And I almost think maybe we should just, Ralph, would you like to brief everyone on some of the things you've done?
Basically, I started performing somewhere around the age of 6. Born in Baltimore, but I strongly hold Summerton, South Carolina as my home. That's where my parents migrated from, and much of my family still left behind there. I was influenced musically by my mother, who was a gospel singer, and my uncle, he was a guitarist who played with the renowned blues singer Muddy Waters. I began performing gospel and rhythm and blues.
Hey, see, Ralph, I had no idea. You never mentioned that in all of our conversations, that you had an uncle that played with Muddy Waters.
This is what
the legend. You know?
You learn things about you as we go along. So, and I almost want, after he talks about this, I'd almost like to go back for a second, because I'd like to know and find out more about what that was about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we've interrupted you. Go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, that's no problem. Like I said, he influenced me. I was about 5 years old, and he would play the guitar, and he put the guitar in my arms and he taught me how to play the honky tonk, and that's where I started then. And from 1957 to probably 1975, I performed in school plays and church choirs and stuff like that. And also with several well-known groups. I started singing doo-wop.
Like who?
One group was called the Del Prees. Another one was called the Hadit Band, which was a band out of East Baltimore who I'm sure you know the famous Dennis Chambers.
Oh.
Well, Dennis Chambers, the drummer, we were all in that same band. Okay. And we performed up and down the East Coast, and people started parting ways because they all went to like Parliament and Funkadelic and all over the place.
So when you were doing this traveling, Ralph, it was like a club circuit type of thing, dance rooms, 2 shows a night, couple dance sets, that kind of deal.
Yeah, it was that kind of thing. Like we probably do for just the weekends, because we were rather young then, and our parents wouldn't let us get out during the week we had to go to school.
Sure.
So
were you teenagers?
Well, in 75, in 75 I was like in my early 20s.
Okay.
Of course. And from 57 to 75, we did. I played in my first nightclub when I was 13. And was in the nightclubs from that point on.
You and I have a lot in common, my friend.
Yes.
Yeah, listen to that.
So, well, basically, while playing with those other groups, I started taking an interest, of course, in trying to learn how to read music and understand more. So I went to Peabody in '75, and I took percussion study to the preparatory college and studied percussion. But while I was there, I was compelled to play jazz. I met some of Baltimore's greatest jazz artists, Mickey Fields and a guy named Jimmy Wells, and they introduced me to uh, a orchestra back then. It was called the Lou Ginsburg Orchestra, in which Lou had a band that played all over the city and county and so forth. And I was playing actually percussion and timpani with Lou. Then from there, I went to a group called the Fuzzy Cane Trio, which recorded back then. They had a really nice hit record. And I played with Fuzzy. He was one of the top jazz artists in Baltimore at the time. And we would open up the major concerts for George Benson, Roy Ayers, Sir Walter Jackson, Billy Taylor, Lonnie Liston Smith, Joe Williams, and many other major artists. Additionally, I performed with Freddie Cole, Nat King Cole's brother. Winfield Parker,
so have I, Ralph. That's funny.
Yeah.
In Atlantic City quite a while ago. Yeah.
Sure. I was up with him in New York, and also on the famous Pennsylvania Avenue in Baltimore at the Club Casino. And there's a lady in your area. I'm hoping she's still around. I haven't seen her or heard from her in a while. And her name is Sedatress Brown. Sedatress, she played, I think, with Thelonious Monk back in the day. So I played with Sedatress and also Richie Groove Holmes. So I'm sure you guys know Richie Groove Holmes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, but as the years had progressed, if you will allow me to continue, playing percussion, really, it wasn't really that popular when I started playing, because a lot of percussionists kind of got in the way and did a lot of things to offend the artists that they were playing with in most cases.
Are you saying Are you saying that the percussionist? I have to interrupt because I'm a drummer. Are you saying that the percussionist got in the way of the drummer?
Of the drummer and the whole band. Yeah. Okay. A lot of your learned musicians, and I'm talking about like the ones that the trios, the jazz trios, and so forth. You had to be a fairly good percussionist to come in between a trio and a quartet and come in and play. And you had to kind of demand respect, because it really wasn't looking, unless you were Chanapozo or Candido or Mungo Santa Maria,
Sure.
So this explains a lot, because
it does. And what he's saying is it rings so true, because when I was a young musician and played with older musicians in the Philadelphia area, I found that when you are conversing in improvisation in jazz,
and people have to understand that you mean musically conversing, you're talking about
listening to one another.
The instruments are voices.
Yes.
And you have to be listening to one another in order for not to be talking over one another or interrupting one another, to be conversing and responding.
Exactly. And if you are not conversing, then these older musicians or better musicians will just dish you. You are now out of the mix.
What's interesting here, again, learning from, I'm hearing this history too, but I didn't realize about the Peabody angle and the timpani angle, because I did that too. And the fact
yes.
Go ahead. What was that, Ralph?
I was saying, I recall you saying so. And that was interesting. I didn't elaborate on it when you talked about it, but I could identify with it when we were conversating.
Well, what's happening here, and this is something that I haven't told you guys, is that I've attempted over the past couple of years on several occasions to work with percussionists who would perform with me, because my interest in a band, which is what Nexus is becoming now, my interest in a band is to become a band that does you could call it the rock classics, but that doesn't mean classic rock all the time. It means just the classics of the very popular tunes and originals. But to have a percussive, meaning meaning drum set, Latin percussion,
Yeah.
congas, but it also means bass and
Right.
keyboard. It's all the percussive instruments doing things that are polyrhythmic or call and response or doing things that way. But
Sure.
when I've worked with people from Santana, or when I've worked with people who are just freelance percussionists, you are one of the
Mhm.
better ones at being able to listen and then me listen, so that we're playing
Sure.
harmonically, rhythmically, never stepping on each other. At least knowing when we get that way, and
Sure.
being able to play, and at the end having a very musical moment. Whereas instead of just everyone just trying to play as many notes as they can or trying to play over each other,
Right.
and so that's what the Nexus rock band
Actually, the whole
is.
point is
Sure.
that what we are achieving, what I have learned about you, Ralph, and from the rehearsals that we've been in and the work we've done, we have to be one
Hmm.
voice.
Mhm.
We are
Sure.
creating one
Sure. That's
voice, one positive energy.
right.
And people haven't even heard this yet. We are gonna, by the time we are gonna share with people, I think, some of the music of
Sure. Sure.
Nexus, and they're gonna hear what we're talking about. But
Sure.
but but I will tell you, Ralph, that it's been a long time. It's not common when you can do what you're doing on the percussion, and then I'm doing what I'm doing, and we're not playing over one another. I that's kind of what you're saying, that you had a
Oh
hard time
yes.
finding people who could do that, and it's
Right.
just it.
Well, it was almost like this. It's just like the home improvement industry. You go in someone's house and they've had a bad experience with these jackleg carpenters and people coming in and saying that they can fix the plumbing, and then it's the problem. And so when you come in and you're qualified and capable, you have to fight through all of those experiences that your client has gone through over the years.
Right.
And the same thing happens in music. You get a generous guy who could be a great artist, and he allows a fella or a person to come up and play percussion, and they get up there and they really don't understand the music. Like um, you have to understand when you're playing jazz, when you're playing Latin, when you're playing world beat, salsa, you know, Tobago. What you got to know what you're playing, and you have to understand the different rhythmatic accents and how the thinking has to take place when you're performing it. And so I had to fight through all of that over the years, and finally, it got to a point where I could demand a little bit of respect, and people will allow you to come in because I'm not really there to overplay. I'm there to accompany and to play as a team, and that's I look for the same thing in the other musicians, and I'm sure you guys look for it in me. And
Right.
but that it took me a while. I went through quite a few changes doing so. Like I said, I played reggae. I played, uh, jazz. I played rhythm and blues. I played funk. Of course, funk was as a young man with the Barcades and all those guys coming through. That was something. But all of that basically got me to where I am today. But it did some other things that I was hoping that we would segue to, and that was uh, uh, in my experiences. I was recording with Verdine White, Earth, Wind and Fire,
Yep.
um,
Hmm.
and I went in. I went in the studio. I was with a group at one time. It was called Both Worlds out of Baltimore, and Verdine came in and did a group uh, that was called Pocket. He had that he was producing at the time on the sidebar, And he came to Baltimore, and he pulled out a group from Baltimore, a bunch of excellent musicians, and they did that cut. I don't know whether you could remember it. You both could remember it or not. It was called Yaya Pasado, and it went something like Yaya Pasado, por esa cosa. I've been through all these years. That's and when I came into the studio to record. Verdine was standing there. I brought my congas in, and I just knew I was going to rip it off. I was going to go in, and I was going to tear up on this cut because they had some really nice up-tempo numbers that they wanted to do. And Verdine asked me to sit down, and they started the session. And all he asked me to do was go boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom.
That was your function. Yeah.
That was your function.
that was my function.
Well,
You know what? You
that.
inadvertently did, Ralph. I mean, when I first started learning how to play Latin and salsa music,
yeah, but Lou
learned,
had to count 104 measures to hit 3 triangle beats.
That's true. I did, and I messed it up. And so I should tell that story on the air. But Ralph, what I'm trying to say is, when I first started to learn about Latin music and about playing salsa, I found out all about what the clave meant in that music.
Yes,
and people think of clave like two pieces of wood you're banging together, but no, it is the center rhythm that everyone has to internalize.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right.
And so,
and I'm really down, and I understand you all the way.
I mean, that concept.
Yeah.
I have made that concept in my personal performance kind of relate to any type of music there is. I mean, there is always a rhythmic center point, and no one should be depending on anybody else to know where the first beat of a measure is. Or as us musicians say, where the heck is one? You know, everyone should know where one is. When you have that you have that understanding, then you are truly being creative and making music. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think. You know, and I'm getting that out of what you're talking about now.
What's interesting is Ralph is stressing this angle that I didn't expect us to be talking about tonight, and that is the idea of musicians communicating with one another. And in order to do what he's talking about, just for the listener, just for the general public to understand this, in order for the musicians to be able to play without running over each other, without stepping on each other and listening, they have to be disciplined and they have to put their ego in their pocket.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's the part that you had. You had trouble finding people who could put the ego in their pocket, and because
Well, Verdine made me put mine in my pocket because as a young man, I thought that more, instead of less being more, I thought more meant more, and so when I got into the studio with him, that was my eye opener for actually record production. I really got the understanding at that point. You know how the light bulb would come on, and it was, you just do this, and everything in that studio was built. Everybody had their basic stuff to do. Everything was layered, and it was composed and put together. So if everybody played their parts and didn't overplay the parts and so forth,
Ralph,
then that's how you got a...
I'm sorry, Ralph, it's the same concept like Hitsville back in Detroit in the day.
Yeah.
With all those tunes.
Exactly.
You had a bunch of guys that knew what their function was, and it locked.
Right.
That's right.
Ego in the pocket.
And that's what I got. That's right. That's what I got from Verdine. And from that time, from that point on, in 1981, that's when I started trying to record and produce. And I produced my first record album, 81, and I've been producing ever since. And Verdine was basically my inspiration when I sat through those sessions with him and watched him work. And then when I listened to Earth, Wind, and Fire and you see how everybody's doing just their part and so forth. It was my eye opener, and it was the beginning of my record production.
What's the name of your label?
My label is called Dugam Records, and that's really my last name spelled backwards.
Dugam?
Dugam, right? And that's DOOWGAM.
Yeah, I get that.
Magwood is. And the reason why it's Dugam,
yes.
the reason why it's Dugam Records is because you know how you had to do your name search.
Yes.
And I did my name search probably about 5 or 6 times, and in every name I selected was taken. So I just took my name and reversed it, called it Dugam Records.
We have. I'm surprised how fast this went, but we've run out of time in our first segment. We are going to take a break and come back on the other side. It's always fun to tell everybody that the music that we're outing with is a song written by Lou Durham and played by Nexus years ago.
Yes.
Called "Fly," and people ask about that all the time, so I'm making sure people know. And we'll be back in a minute.
The Susan Cohen Colon Cancer Foundation cordially invites you to their 9th Annual Memories Gala celebration on Friday, April 28th at the Martins Valley Mansion in Cockeysville, Maryland. Join them for an evening of music and fine cuisine in support of a great cause. This event features 2 bands for your entertainment: the Palovations and the Nexus Rock Band. Don't miss this great event which supports a wonderful cause. Book your tickets in advance by calling 667-206-2907. That's 667-206-2907. Or visit www.coloncancerfoundation.org for full details.
Hello, everybody in Radio Land. This is Brian Choper again with Lou Durham and our guest, Ralph Magwood, and welcome back to tbmradioshow.com, the business of music radioshow.com.
Welcome back. We have an exciting segment coming up with all kinds of great information and expounding upon Ralph and what he is doing in his life now in producing and working with different bands. In fact, Ralph,
you were just talking to us about when you first met him.
I first met you, Ralph, because we came to see you and a band that you represent called the Palovations, which is a tribute band for the Temptations. And that's how I got to know you. And now at the end of the month, the Nexus and the Palovations will be sharing a stage and doing a show together.
Yep, an exciting show together,
which I'd like you to talk about. I was saying that we would like to play a couple of selections, briefly on the air here. One, Papa Was a Rolling Stone.
Yeah, let's play that and come back on the other side.
Okay, let's play some
Ralph
Papa.
Can explain what's going on.
Okay, we're going to do Papa Was a Rolling Stone,
fine.
and then we'll come back on the other side.
Okay.
Is it true when they say that Papa never worked a day in his life?
There's some bad talk going around town, saying that Papa had 3 outside children and another wife, and that ain't right.
Folks talk about Papa, don't stop for preaching, talking about saving souls and all the time leeching. Living in dirt, stealing in the name of the Lord. I'm just on here and say, Papa was a rolling stone. Wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died, all he left us was alone. I said, Papa was a rolling stone. Wherever he laid his hat was his home. And when he died, all he left us was alone. I said,
Ralph, tell us about that.
Yeah, I thought Yeah, that really sounded great. I didn't know you guys had captured that when we went out that day. That's really wonderful. For our listeners, I'm excited, and the relationship with Big Shot Records and Brian and with Lou has been a wonderful relationship, and it all started off with the group, the Palovations, and when we came together to go and take a look at the Palovations, Lou and Brian really enjoyed themselves that day, and I was quite proud that I had shown them a really nice product. And what I mean by product, the group has the potential and the quality that I was sure that Big Shot Records, Brian and Lou was looking for. And I know as an audience, if you can get a chance to go online, come to the website, you'll see that the Susan Cohen Colon Cancer Foundation is having its 9th annual Memories Gala, and that's going to be Friday, April the 28th, from 7:30 p.m. to midnight, and it's going to be at the Martins Valley Mansion, 594 Cranbrook Road, Cockeysville. It's going to be a wonderful night. Nexus, in which I have been really happy to have had the pleasure to start performing with. It's going to be Nexus and the Palovations. The Palovations are going to be full of the Motown sound. They're going to be doing great numbers like what you just heard. And Nexus is going to be doing, the music repertoire that Nexus has just blown me away these last couple of weeks, and we're going to really have a great night that night.
I'm really looking forward
I'm excited.
to it. Yes.
What I almost feel I almost feel of this show coming up is it's almost going to be a musical review of the music of the 60s through the 90s, and then adding some pop to it. So people are going to get a variety of music, and they're going to see the Palovations, this Temptations group come out, and then they're going to see us come out with the classics.
The interesting thing about this is this Nexus project that we have developed with Ralph.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, people can dance to it.
Yep.
But what's going to set us apart?
Yes,
what's going to set us apart is the fact that we are musicians coming together, being creative with something that's unique and something that's new and something that's different, which can sell if people want to dance or they just want to sit there and in their chair and listen to a good concert.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly the way I feel about it, Lou. I've been excited. I'm telling you, and it's really sounding good. But I really there's one little point that not a little point. This is a very large point that I wanted to bring into it too, and that is that I am so happy that Big Shot Records has come into and taken the Susie's Cause Colon Cancer Foundation's mission at heart, and I'm a firm believer that musicians should have a purpose, and not just playing music is the thing. We should be about making our community better, and that's through doing edifying and great music, and not just the music, but the community development and working with the organizations and making sure that we have, because the arts is what makes us civilized.
That's right.
And if we continue to do what we're doing with Nexus and with the Palovations, I know we'll have a great community and we'll have a wonderful night.
It's our universal
we'll have a wonderful relationship.
I'll tell you.
Yes, it is.
I'll tell you. Big Shot Records has done lots of different fundraisers for lots of different people because it's always easier. Well, put it this way. It's easy to write a check, but you can always make more money and raise more money for a cause when you have a band performing to a large audience. Then it's much more effective than just writing a check. But what seduced me into Susie's Cause was really the fact that I saw the passion in everyone involved in that organization. And as I've mentioned to you, I have my family and friends. There's no cancer. Okay. We're not. A lot of people get involved in a foundation because they have cancer in their family or a cancer in a friend or whatever have you. That's actually not what this is. Just like being involved in the USO, I don't have anyone in the military. but the respect you get by seeing these people who have given so much to the service, knowing that you can perform for them and to see their faces light up, one thing, but knowing that I'm not sick, my family's not sick, but you know what it's like to be sick. And if you can do something about that and work with people with such passion to solve the problem,
to educate them,
how can you not be a part of that? And so that's how that started. And now we've brought in, and now you have another dynamic though in the Susie's Cause world, which is that they have people involved in the organization who understand the arts and who understand liberal arts and understand music and respect it. I've been around some who were not quite like that. But here you have this dynamic where they want the quality. They want this thing going on. And in fact, it was their idea to introduce me to you, Ralph, and then you showed me the band, your band, and we showed you our band. And next thing you know, we have this thing going on, which is sometimes things are meant to happen.
And the other day, when we all had lunch together, Ralph, and you played us a CD that you have been working on, that you're ready to release, it was like opening up a new curtain, because I had no idea what a great singing voice you have, and how
thank you.
And how well this
and this is what
put
I meant
together, this
early
CD
on
is.
in the first segment when I said that Ralph is this soft-spoken guy, because you don't know what's behind all the layers until you peel them away, because he's modest.
Right.
About
okay.
Okay. And you can tell that in the playing. I'm like that. I'm like that. You know, I people say, "Do you play the drums?" Yes. I don't get into it. You go online, you hear what I do. Do you like it or do you not like it? I'm not going to sell that. I'm just let that speak for itself. People, hopefully they like it, or if they don't, tell me why not. I'm open to all of those things. So,
and to
go ahead.
Right, and to me, all of that, Brian, just to cut, what we do, to me, is spiritual. It is a gift, and I don't know how people think about their higher power, their higher beings, and so forth. But for me, it is spiritual, and I believe that if you have something that you've been ordained with and a gift of some sort, I believe that if you want to keep it, I always say this, and people, I hope they don't misinterpret what I'm talking about, but you got to give it away to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
That's my saying. You got to give it away to keep it.
Now,
can't have something. Go ahead.
Well, what I wanted to say is I almost want to take this back for a second, because right now I feel like we're on a love fest of each other, and I want people in the radio world to understand that's not why we do the radio show, okay?
It's true.
And so we're talking about these things, we're excited, but let's bring it back here for a second and talk about the music and everything else, instead of just saying, hey, how you're wonderful, I'm wonderful. That's not why we're on the radio. So I know, Lou, you were talking, I was asking you some questions about, we were talking about the Palovations 5 minutes ago.
Right.
Okay? And you heard them in Baltimore.
Yes.
What was your thought on them as, a band that you're just seeing? We're in the front row, 10 feet from them.
10 feet from them.
And what was your thought about that? Let's come back to the music and
I thought that it was exciting. I thought that a lot of groups will not show enthusiasm in their choreography.
Okay.
They will not show happiness.
They
showed us
yes,
happiness.
Yes, that's true. Mm-hmm.
They were just like really.
They weren't stiff.
No, they were totally loose.
And when people raise signs up in the audience, they pointed to him. It's like, yes, one was like I love you or something like this, and they waved.
They waved.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that was my impression of the Palovations. The Palovations to me showed me that they were a bunch of guys who definitely have a love for soul music and R&B, and especially the Temptations, and they like what they're doing. And it's an exciting group, and is marketable and is in so many ways as a dance group
Yes.
or as a concert group.
Sure.
Yes. People need to see this band.
People need to see these guys.
Yep.
Yes.
So
And,
that's what we're doing.
and that's yeah. Now the way I thought in our conversation as well, we would talk about how I came about working with Susie's Cause and bringing the Palovations on. So, being a musician myself, I started performing at the outreach colon cancer festivals for Susie's Cause. I performed at the first one 5 years ago. And just a year ago, I was asked to come in and see if I could help develop the entertainment portion of the festivals. And in doing so, I would get the best talent in the area based on the demographics of whatever facility we were working in. And we would put on a festival with the health portion being taken care of by a partnering hospital. And I would pull together the entertainment. The Palovations was a group that I saw one day. And when I saw that group, I felt the same way you guys felt when you saw them the first time. And so I had them to come out to our board meeting. They actually came and they sang pro bono, and the board loved them to death. And then probably a month or so after, we had them for the first gala that we did, and which was the 8th annual gala last year. And they've been performing for Susie's Cause up and down the East Coast. I take them to New York, to Philadelphia, and of course down in the College Park area. We do a festival in Washington. So that was my connection. And now my connection with Big Shot Records basically came through Susie's Cause as well, and I'm really excited about it.
Got it. So this one coming up on the 28th is the 9th annual?
9th annual, yes,
Okay.
it is.
Gotcha. So let us take a minute here to let people hear one more. We have I Can't Get Next to You, right?
Can't Get Next to You.
Let's let people hear this. Okay, and we are back, and that was I Can't Get Next to You. And I'm always curious because, Lou is our music director, but Ralph, you're the music director for this band. So what do you do to, how your shows are, what, 90 minutes?
Yeah, no, sometimes 90, sometimes we do 3 sets. Sometimes, in most cases, we do 2.
Okay.
A 3 set is a pretty long night, but that's 3 45-minute sets.
Now, people just heard I Can't Get Next to You. So how do you decide what songs to do? You have a particular list of like your top, how do you figure out how to put a list together so that when people come out to see this group, they know they're going to have a rockin' time of it? How do you figure that out?
Well, see, yeah, well, we do it. I guess what you might call momentum.
Okay.
That the first set is basically to get everybody kind of started and warmed up. So let's say we're doing 2 sets for that night. that first set is to get the group tuned up, get the people tuned up, and make sure the band and everybody is gelled and functioning together. And we do that. Once we get that done, and that's tunes that we might go from slow to fast, slow to fast, slow to fast,
All
you
right.
know, something
All right.
like that.
Okay.
And then I start looking at who is my star performers, who's the best, and they're my closers. They're the ones. They're the ones that we might get the guys who a little bit more mediocre, the ones who don't sing as well as the others. We have them do those kind of ballads and things that the people really love, and you don't have to be the greatest singer to deliver. All you have to do is have the emotion.
So now we're getting
saw that.
Yeah, and as you're, I don't mean to interrupt you. So hold on. That I want the public to know. I want the listeners to realize that what you're talking about right now are the behind the scenes things that go on when you're putting a show together, which involve who you spotlight, what songs you spotlight, when you do it, and when and in what order you do it in, and it comes down to the same principles. That's why I don't hold your thought, but I want people to realize it comes down to the same principles as what they called an album, which is you know today people buy tracks.
Single tracks.
And they don't understand what an album was. And an album was something that you would have that had 13 tracks on it by average, 13, 14 tracks. And the music directors and the producers would look at this and decide what song and what order the song would be in order to not only give the listener a roller coaster ride of emotions, but they would be deciding what goes first, second, and third. Go ahead,
and
Lou.
it would work in a couple different ways. I mean, for example, with a group like the Temptations, when you're putting together that kind of a show, you're of course going to grab all of their top dance tunes and party type stuff that they did in the 60s.
And I knew that that's what the listener was thinking.
Sure.
But there's more to it than that.
Well, there sure is, because when you're putting together a show, and Ralph, I know that you utilize more things than just the Temptations. I've heard Earth, Wind, and Fire. I've heard Michael Jackson. I've heard the Stylistics.
Sure.
So, in essence, what you're doing is when you're putting together a show or you're putting together an album, you're putting together a story. You're trying to tell us an auditory story.
An emotional story.
An emotional story.
Yeah, and I actually call it illustrations. They are musical, they are illustrations that if I can get the performer to really paint the picture, when you take a song, the way I push them is that when you take that song, you have to go home and you got to understand the writer. You got to understand what the writer's trying to illustrate, and you have to get into it. And once you get into it and get close to that writer and what the writer was trying to deliver, or the composer, let's say composer, then now you have an idea of this message or whatever they're visualizing through music. And that's the way I work with the guys. You have to know the artist, and you have to understand what the artist is trying to get across to the audience. And that's the way we work. And then it's a crescendo. Basically, I
have to interrupt because we're running out of time in our second segment, but this is so fascinating. What I want to let people know is we're going to come back on the other side in a minute or two, and we're going to continue this exactly from where we left off. We're talking about the engineering of a show, and people can have this. So hold that thought, Ralph, and we'll be right back after a little bit of fly and a break. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back again with our third and final segment of TBMRadioshow.com, the Business of Music radio show with our guest, Ralph Magwood. And I can tell you that there's so much going on in this hour that on the next episode, I think we're going to have a continuation where we are going to invite Jack. Is it Jack Serio?
Yes, Jack Stereo.
Jack Serio.
With Susie's Cause.
With Susie's Cause on, and we're going to have Ralph on too. And we can talk together about the music, the bands, the collaborative dynamic, and really what Susie's Cause does, because part of what Big Shot Records is all about is working with nonprofits to help them raise money, to help them find a cure for cancer, and for all of these things to
educate people.
And to educate people about this. Yes. Well, that's what they're doing.
Yes.
That's true.
That's what they're doing.
Right.
So I interrupted you when you were talking about the mechanics, the business side. It's not even the business side. It's the music side still. But it's the mechanics of figuring out how to put a show together to really give the listener the best performance. And please go ahead and explain that and elaborate on that, because a lot of people just don't know what goes into that. They think you're just picking a bunch of tunes that are popular.
Right. No, we don't do that. And if it was that easy, you probably have everybody doing that. But it's a tough job, because the first thing we do is we go into looking at the venue, looking at the demographics, looking at the psychographics of the customer, and then when we come in, we even look at the facility itself, what the facility can provide by way of ambience and color and the spiritual form, the making my customer feel a certain way before we even start the music, selecting the music. Mm-hmm. So we look at the venue. We try to make sure that we understand the acoustics, the feeling of the place. There's a lot involved. And then after we do many other things, then we get down to our song list. Mm-hmm. And the song list, and sometimes it could even be based on who's been really, really singing well this week. Mm-hmm. It could come down to someone having a problem that they might want to get off their chest, and some things going on in their life, and they want to sing and they feel sensitive about things. So as we select songs and make sure that everybody's on one accord, I don't select songs for that group unless the group says, yes, that's great right there, Ralph. We're going to do that right here. Mm-hmm. And that all works. And so everything has to gel, and it has to, the end result is that if what I am singing and I'm delivering makes me, let's say, feel the way I want my audience to feel, I think that's sort of like one of my big pet peeves. Now you can't sing a.
You were mentioning earlier on how you're not just choosing the song, getting to the music. You're not just choosing the song, yes, but you're also choosing the song based upon the singer, what you think the singer is going to bring to the table. I'm not sure if I should say the emotion or the dynamics, or the presentation, the visual presentation.
It's the presentation.
Okay.
See, because now if it was gospel, and I'll just say it that way because I can speak a little bit better on that perspective when it comes to that visual presentation. The way they would say in gospel, and it still spins over to R&B, is that if it don't make you shout, how can it make anybody else shout?
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
and that's sort of like a concept. If you're not feeling it, how's everybody else going to feel it? You know,
You're
and
basically
so
you're
that's why.
basically asking the band to heighten their leadership qualities, because it's a leader who gets in front of a crowd, who can tell who can tell whether the crowd's into this and whether it's not into this, and what they need to do to get them into whatever they're trying to convey.
Right. That illustration,
Yeah.
that musical illustration,
Yeah.
and I go as far with my group to this may sound strange, but if I may, I tell the guys that from my experience, because the guys are younger than I am in the group, but from my experience, I used to say this, that I could be on stage and the room could be dim. And I can tell you how the people were feeling 200 seats in the back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could, you know, that's how you have to vibe when you are performing. You have to feel the pulse of the room
Mm-hmm.
and of your customers
Mm-hmm.
and those kind of things. And that's the way I select music. Hey, Matt, how do you feel about it? Can you see those people in the back? Can you feel their vibrations? And you know, when you start delivering these songs, and then one of the major things that I've always stressed, and that is that no song is sung the same every time or performed the same. Every time you perform that song, there's something different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I try to train the young, because I'm really a stickler for developing artists. I think the better your artists are developed, and developing artists, it makes the business better for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and it just does the best thing for us. Yes.
Ralph, unfortunately, in our business these days, with the advent of tracks being used by bands in live performance, and by the kind of music that is the pop rock that is out there, it's almost taking away that human element that you're talking about. And it's like, you know, we call it in music being a cover band. So if you don't sound exactly like the record all the time, you're no good in somebody's mind.
Right.
And that's why you know, people would rather sometimes hear a DJ, because they don't get the personal experience between an audience and a group.
And sometimes the band doesn't even want to do it because they feel like they're being pushed into being a DJ, which is robotic.
Yes.
And
right.
what I'm hearing you say, though, what I wanted to expand on all of this again for the world, for our audience to understand, for how I'm interpreting you, and I understand this because Nexus is the same way. It's a very improvisational type of world. When you're on, you know, when the boys and the men, the difference is the men are improvisational and the boys copy and become very static in what they're doing. And what you're kind of saying is that your Palovations improvise to some degree and sound different with what they do, and they're reading the audience and they're working the audience. You know, Nexus does the same thing.
Sure.
But you've trained your guys to do that. That's what it sounds to me.
See, right. And from my musical study, you know, and my music production background, you know, I came from the analog period, you know.
Yeah,
and
so did Lou and I. Yes. So did Lou and I. We saw the whole change.
That's right. And so the music changes as well, because when you go to digital, you don't have the curves, and you don't have the swells and so forth in it. Everything's digital, so it's up, straight, down, up, straight. You know, everything is robotic.
Mm-hmm.
And shall I say, when I say digital, you don't feel the softness and the colors like you should if you're producing that kind of music.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I feel is lacking, the color. So when we get guys to get up and do Motown or some Stylistics or some Marvin Gaye or some Earth, Wind and Fire,
Mm-hmm.
what I get them to understand is that things were soft back then and had curves and color and, movement that wasn't just straight up and down.
And Ralph, I think what you're saying is where we are coming from, Brian, myself, and you. When we speak of analog, we're speaking of emotion and feeling, which changes in every time you perform, depending on the audience.
Yes, it does.
Depending on how you feel that day, the ambiance of the room you're in. When we're talking about digital, the folks out there who are listening to this show, which is the business of music, digital is binary mathematics.
Okay.
It's a
Yes,
one
it is.
and it's a zero.
When
it's on or it's off.
The true musicians, the true musicology people, regardless of if they play an instrument or not, I'm always hearing them say that they miss analog.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I'm hearing it across the board, and that's why vinyl's coming.
That's why vinyl's
coming back. Actually,
and why a lot of the keyboard instruments that you may hear on the radio are now
as I'm
getting real-time controls.
Talking about creativity. Listen. He mentioned the fact that he even plans his set list around the venue.
Sure.
And I'm remembering what happened when we were playing the Brian Chopra Jazz band with Peter Canella, played at the Block in February, and it was a very unique time because we are trying to create a jazz band to back up a Frank Sinatra type singer in an environment where the drums and the rhythm section were very subdued.
Mm-hmm.
And we set up in the Block, which is Hara's casino, and we do the sound check, and it's taking them 2.5 hours to do the sound check because they're going through all of this stuff, and I'm realizing that this is a rock hall.
Yeah.
It's like a miniature Fillmore. And I'm trying to play like a jazz guy, and I'm thinking, nope, they want the rock sound here. And what we did, the band followed my lead, and we transformed the band into a jazz band that was playing rock and roll. I was hitting the drums pretty hard, and I was playing all the jazz licks, but it sounded like I was playing rock and roll on a jazz set, or jazz on a rock set.
Right.
And that, I think, is part of what Ralph is talking about, where you change what you're doing depending on the room. I just didn't know getting into that that's what I would be doing, but they loved it.
Right.
That's what they wanted.
Sure.
That's what they wanted.
Sure.
And it's sold out. I mean, so I just I'm understanding what you're saying, but that may be something that our listening audience can grab onto and understand, that we basically changed the dynamics of how we were playing in the room because of how the room was set up to.
Right. I could tell you a little story I used to tell when I was teaching school. I told the kids that if you take a ride cymbal, and I don't care whose cymbal, let's say Dennis Chambers' ride cymbal, and let's take your ride cymbal. If we took a look at the molecular structure of your cymbal right now,
okay,
it would be structured in a manner as of to how you play it. And Dennis's molecular, his symbols, the structure would be those molecules or atoms or whatever you want to call them in that particular symbol will be structured based on what Dennis Chambers does to his symbol. And so you've heard how instruments only each artist can only make that sound with their instrument.
Yes.
You know, some artists, they have got to have this particular guitar to be able to do and deliver this particular feel and sound and texture and so forth.
Right.
Instruments kind of bring themselves to us as well. You know, they adapt that wood to your guitar, adapts to your playing. And that's the way I look at it. And that's the way I try to extend it to artists that I'm working with and that I'm developing and so forth, that, hey, all of this stuff works as one. And that's my point.
So let's
all works at
let's
once.
take a slightly different tangent to this, and that is that obviously people know the Palovations as a Temptations tribute band, but you don't hold strictly to that rule, and I'm sure you're going to explain why. What I wanted to do for a second was you mentioned to me that you don't just play Temptations music. You see,
Right.
and
That's right.
and what I thought we might do is you can explain a little bit of that, but I wanted people to hear, perhaps like "You Make Me Feel So Good," you make me feel brand new,
You make
Brand
me
new.
feel brand new.
Brand new. Yes.
right? And let people hear that, and come back and explain why you.
And it is a similar type of group to the Temptations in a lot of ways because it's a singing group.
Oh, okay.
The Stylistics,
But-
Blue Magic,
But
the
he's not holding.
Delphonics,
But
all
he's
of
not
those.
with all the music of the Temptations. He's not holding always to the repertoire of the Temptations.
No, exactly.
Okay.
He's
Right, because and we can talk about that because then now you're talking about a pigeonhole, and also back in the day when those groups were out performing, in my neighborhood, every block had two bands and two groups,
Okay.
and one group did the Stylistics, the other one did the Temptations, one did the Dells, the one did the Four Tops, and the other one did Smokey.
Right.
And so what you do is you capture now when you change the selection of your music, you go to that audience that was listening to Smokey because Smokey was smoking back then.
Mm-hmm.
The Temptations were, and everybody. We just had such a variety of entertainers and performances back then. Then you can't get up there and just do Temptations. If you did that, you would go flat before the night was over.
Well, for instance,
unless you go ahead.
for instance, I believe that I heard you do Michael Jackson, some Michael Jackson tunes.
Michael Jackson. That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
I also
And-
heard
and-
Bruno
So
Mars.
did you feel like you had to do that, or you wanted to add variety to it, or you just did it because what made you?
No,
Go ahead.
I have you look at, if you got 5 singers in the group, everybody's got their songs that they like and their artists that they like. And when you guys came over, you observed that first tenor, believe me, he's a great first tenor and he has a super voice, but he loves Michael Jackson. Right. If you would see him in a full performance, he has the flashing coat, the hat, the glove on one hand, and he does the whole thing. He comes down off the stage, he does the moonwalk across the floor, and what he's doing is he's bringing back Michael to that audience who just got finished listening to My Girl.
This just shows people that they need to go see the show. Now we're drastically running out of time here, so what I want to do is throw us over to let people hear the song I'm just talking about.
Stylistics,
Wonderful.
You Make Me Feel Brand New.
Yes. Let's go hear this and come back on the other side. All right, so we are back on the other side of that. Ralph, why don't you explain a little bit about why you picked that tune for this?
Well, the Stylistics was probably had the smoothest tenor, and it was more a love song. They were a love song group, and when you heard that stylistic sound, that was the time that you would grab your girl and and have a nice slow dance under the blue lights and in the basement, and just enjoy that one dance, listening to the stylistics. Every show that we do, there's a moment for that. There's a moment for someone to reminisce that dance in the basement. And that's how we put those components in there. We look at what we're trying to feed the audience by way of variety.
Right.
And that's the way we...
Okay. So I hope people come out to see the Palovations and Nexus, Thunder and Lightning, on April 28th. Ralph, you want to go ahead and give people the details of that again in case they missed it?
Right. It is the Susan Cohan Colon Cancer Foundation 9th Annual Memories Gala. And it's going to be held Friday, April the 28th, 2017, 7:30 p.m. to midnight. The dress is business casual, and it's at the Martin Valley Mansion, 594 Cranbrook Road, Cockeysville. Premium buffet prepared by master chefs of specialties from the following coastal locations: Boston, New York, North Carolina, New Orleans, and Baltimore. Deluxe open bar, 2 live bands, like we said, Nexus and Nexus Thunder, which is Thunder and Lightning, and the Palovations. Okay, so come on out and join us, and we can talk about music. You can listen to music, dance to music. It's just going to be a wonderful time, and it's just a thing to do to help support colon cancer.
Now, we're just about out of time tonight for this episode, but we're not done talking to Ralph. There's so much more to talk about when it comes to the Palovations and Nexus shows and projects that are up and coming. You're also going to hear us talk about the music of Nexus, and that Ralph performs in. Ralph is in the band, so he's not just in the Palovations.
Yeah.
And we're gonna next week actually be able to air some of that music and show that and explain that dynamic and explain how the two bands actually complement. That's what I'm working. Complement one another. And then at that time, we'll talk more about how we're working with the Colon Cancer Foundation and talk to Jack Serio. And there's so much more. And this will be picked up next week. And I encourage all of you to look at that and check us out again, tbmradioshow.com, which is thebusinessofmusicradioshow.com.
I just want to say goodnight and thanks for listening.
Yeah, Ralph, thank you very much. And obviously we're not done.
Yes, and thanks for having me.
Okay. We'll see you
and good,
guys.
Good night to everyone.
We'll see you guys for the second, for part 2 of this next week.
There you go.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Have a great night.